Hello, lovely ladies. Here I am checking in about my passion. I took a little while to think about this because lately I'm passionate about a few things, but one thing that I absolutely talk to as many people about as I can is cold therapy. So I chose that to talk to you today. It has changed my life in different ways. I'll set you up a little bit. I was going through, so I had a huge change in my life. I left Italia and I went to Canada. I had a difficult breakup and I was seeking, essentially. I was searching, did some major work, some major soul searching. And during the lockdown, I was invited by a friend of mine to go and stay at his house. And he's a big podcast listener. I had never listened to many podcasts. He was listening to Joe Rogan one day, not one of my favorites, but and Wim Hof was on a program. This was back in March 2020. So just, I guess, a year and a half ago. And something resonated with me about listening to this guest speak, Wim Hof. I don't know if you guys know who he is. He's also known as the Iceman. He's from the Netherlands. He has an interesting story of how he came to discover cold therapy and now what is called the Wim Hof Method. And while I was doing my yoga practice and listening to this, I remembered very clearly that someone streaming in the living room window. It was around dinner time. We were listening to this podcast, and something struck a chord in me very deeply. And that moment changed my life. So basically, he has a breathing technique which is similar to Tummo, which is an ancient breathwork technique, and it's basically hypoxia. You bring your body into a state of hypoxia, which is depriving it of carbon dioxide, essentially. So you breathe in a lot more than you're breathing out. So this goes hand in hand with the cold water therapy technique, and that is exposure to cold water daily. Um, and the benefits can be felt in even just 3 minutes a day, as long as the water is colder than 18 degrees. So that's not even like that intense, and it's very doable. I've learned these things over a year and a half, but when I started, I signed up for a 10-week course, and and um it I don't even know how to begin. I was very dedicated to it. I've never really considered myself a disciplined person that follows through necessarily. I will also abandon if I don't find something serving me. And this did from day one. I could do there's also an exercise component. We're encouraged to do sit ups and push ups and yoga. So I've been doing yoga for many years, and so that was a great excuse to do it every day. And when I started, I couldn't even do 3 full push-ups. By the end of 10 weeks, I was up to 27 push-ups without even breathing. And so I tapped into this inner strength. Week 7, you have to do 10 minutes of a daily cold showers for 10 minutes. And I just fucking did it, yo. I was determined to try and I felt broken, honestly, and I was determined to just take that fissure and crack it wide open, do things I hadn't done before, try anything. I tried absolutely everything to get over my depression and anxiety and worry and pain that I was suffering due to my breakup in particular. I also discovered ayahuasca in this period. Um, and so the cold therapy, what it does basically is reprograms your mind. I mean, there's a lot of physiological, scientific gobbledygook around it, which I've read all of it, but I would not really be able to regurgitate in a way that does it justice. So, in my own way, I can say that I have reprogrammed my mind to deal with stressful situations. Cold is stress. And through staying centered, staying present, focusing on the breath, deep breathing, I am able to stay in cold water like zero, like breaking the ice in a lake to get inside, minus 19 outside, and the water temperature is probably near zero for my longest in my minus 19 was 6 minutes. And that's purely ego, but I tapped into something huge that I did not know that I had in me. I always hated the cold. I don't know many women that really like the cold. I know some guys who do, but I felt like a superhero doing those things, knowing that I can face something so like that I was afraid of. I was afraid of the cold. I felt and do still feel today when I go into extreme cold temperatures for a long time, and I have found that I have not only reprogrammed my mind to be able to face stressful situations, because plenty of stressful situations have reared their ugly heads in the meantime, and I'm okay. I don't feel the anxiety that I once did, the panic, the fear. I can do hard things. And I demonstrate that over and over again. Uh, like, not only with the cold therapy, but if I look back at my life, I see that it was all working up to 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 where I am today. And it has elevated my mood very consistently, like in the last year and a half. Whereas before I was, very all over the place. Now I feel a sense of inner peace that I never did before. I am in a constant state of unwavering joy. Um, my sleep improved for a while and then it got all wonky again, so I can't say that it consistently improved my sleep. I want to be healthier as a result of that. I am healthier. I haven't been sick in a year and a half, whereas I always used to get the flu or a cold or something. I did have a bit of a sore throat in the last few days, and as you may remember, it was probably due to the meeting that I had with my ex-partner, and that is gone. And it didn't get worse or anything. It didn't move down my lungs or into a full-blown cold or anything. It was just like this pain in my throat chakra. um, and so I'm forever grateful to the cold and to the Wim Hof method. I practice the hypoxia breathing every day, yoga, dedicated practice every day. I feel that my body is stronger. Um, I'm building up like resistance training through the yoga practice as well, which is very exciting. And and another cool thing about this passion that I have, which is I find is very kick-ass passion, and not enough people know about it. So I'm preaching the word of cold water therapy to anyone I know, especially who has depression, or suffers like anxiety. It's good for PTSD. I was diagnosed with CPTSD because of difficult childhood traumatic events, and it's so much more manageable. I don't go into a loop of like painful thoughts nearly as much as I used to. And so what I was going to say is, a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I worked with a shaman who's actually a friend of mine. I discovered that she comes from a long lineage of shamans from Russia, her family. She never told that to me until we got to really talking one day. It's not something she announces, I guess. And she um, told me about this trance that she goes into to go into the underworld, I guess, or to another realm. And she talks to her spirit guide, and she gets information and messages, and so I was very intrigued with that, and she agreed to do a session for me, and it involved like drumming and like deep breathing, like going into a state of like hyperventilative state. Anyway, I was successful in going and getting to the underworld, and like I met my spirit guide, who is a mermaid, and her name is Gilda, and she's very cheeky and she's absolutely beautiful. We went swimming, we went flying together, um, and as I was leaving, I didn't want to leave her. As I was leaving, she said, "You can always connect to me eating seaweed or walking barefoot in the snow or going into cold water." And I remember at the time thinking, okay, I'm not going to walk barefoot in the snow, and I'm not going to go into cold water regularly to talk to her. So I began eating seaweed regularly when I wanted to tap into that inner power. And the funny thing is, I forgot about the other two methods. I had written them down in my diary, but I had just taken on the seaweed thing as my method of contact for Gilda. And and then after I started practicing the Wim Hof method, I was going through my old journal and I read what I had written, and it was surely Gilda presenting me with Wim Hof. Um, it's a weird coincidence that she would have told me cold water is one of the best ways to get in contact with me and tap into her power. And so I eat seaweed not as regularly as I used to, because I go into cold water, and that is where I pray. That is where I dance and sing and rejoice and feel powerful and empowered and healthy and toned, and um, I feel like I'm getting younger despite aging. Like, yeah. And so I've met a wonderful community with cold dipping, because I surely didn't know anyone in my friend group who would have gone cold dipping with me. So I reached out to people online and have become part of a wonderful community. I've since met up with other people around Nova Scotia, have a cold dipping community, and I have had some wonderful experiences with people. And some of my friends have also um, come to be cold dippers, and it's a regular practice. And I've discovered so many lovely humans, and lovely moments with those humans in cold water together. And I will carry this with me, hopefully for the rest of my life, because I find it a practice that is very rewarding, enriching, easy to do, and exciting, exhilarating, adventurous, um, action packed. It's pumps me full of adrenaline. It's better than 10 coffees. It helps clear my mind, keep me very present and centered. And I consider it a meditation. And so grateful and appreciative to have found this teacher, Mother Cold. And Wim Hof gotta thank him big time because he's a pretty funny and charismatic guy, and the way he was so enthusiastic, I could feel his passion on the Joe Rogan podcast. He's been on twice, I think now. I just started devouring everything I could find about him on the internet and on YouTube, just like trying to find out more like about this method and what it was. And he had this like 50% off 10-week course for COVID because he wanted people to just like get the message. He started this method. I don't know if you know, but I'll just give you a little bit of background about Wim's um, journey. His wife had schizophrenia. They had four small children. She committed suicide by jumping out of their 8-story apartment balcony window, and he was left. He didn't have a lot of money by any means. He was like a handyman, and he was like devastated because she was the love of his life, and with four small children to tend to. He was walking in the winter, in the middle of winter in Holland, in a park with a frozen over lake, and he saw a hole in that, and he felt compelled to jump into the ice water where he had never had that inkling before. And he went into the water, and when he came out, he said he had the strength and energy of 10 men. And he used that, he brought that with him to help him to heal and take care of his kids and be there for his kids, because that was the most important thing. And he needed to get on with his life because there was a lot to tend to. And so he kept going back to that hole in the ice every day in order to be present for his children, basically. And so that's how it all started. And he discovered that he could help his own depression, and he was able to pull himself from the depths of despair. And I'm getting emotional talking about it, and find the strength, the inner strength. I guess because I'm so happy to have found this method, because I feel that I've definitely tapped into my own inner strength, and I'm so grateful, because I was at the bottom of the barrel, also desperate to get over this breakup and heal my heart, and desperate to find another way. And I find another way, meaning I had difficult breakups in the past, but nothing was quite like this one. I was convinced to have found my soulmate, and so I was like doubly devastated, also because he partnered up with somebody almost immediately, and so it was just like really, really hard. And yeah, now I feel like I can really face anything, and I'm just super happy to share this passion with you guys. So if you ever have had an idea or like a thought about wanting to cold dip, or wanting to find out about that, or maybe you've already done it, let me know how your experience was. Oh God, I think this is getting long. Wow, it's 18 minutes. I also became, because I'm in the Wim Hof Facebook group, um, there was a woman doing research. She's a therapist doing her PhD on PTSD and CPTSD, and so she put a call out if anyone was willing to be interviewed by her for her thesis, because she was a Wim Hof practitioner and was convinced that Wim Hof could help with those things, and the hypoxic breathing and the cold therapy. And so I volunteered. She only interviewed 6 people, and my interview is in part of her research paper. And I read her research paper. She's a woman from Greece, but she's studying in England, and it's a beautiful paper, very interesting research. All of us said the same things, really. So there's something to this. Anyway, enough for now. Thank you for listening, and I'm so happy to still be able to contribute when I can here and there to this program. Lots of love. Ciao.